we met, we were speaking about fear. We were speaking about the fear of being separate and autonomous, and also the fear of not being able to trust one another. And one of the things that I've discovered for myself is the more I trust myself and I trust that I'm not doing this by myself, and the more I tap into my God connection, the less fear I have. And yet, with what's going on in our world right now, with Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, the Blue Lives Matter, all of this, there seems to just be so much tension in our world. And I shared with you, Earl, about a week ago that that in fact I've had some racist thoughts in my past. I've behaved in a racist way. That was really quite surprising to me when I was willing to be introspective about it. And I'll just give you the example that we talked about. When my daughter was in high school, she was dating a black man, and a black young man. And I was, I guess, a good enough mom that I didn't want to hurt feelings, or I didn't want to make a big issue. Really, if I'm honest with myself, I didn't want her to rebel against me or cause me pain, if I'm really honest. That was my motivation for not saying anything. But I really was worried that she would really fall in love with this guy and it would be a thing. And what was I going to do about that? And first of all, there wasn't something for me to do about it, but I had a racist opinion and racist thought about that. And so you hearing that, Earl, as a black man, someone I respect and I love so much, it was risky for me to share that with you, quite honestly, for my fear of losing, our connection, or that you might think differently of me as a result. So that was a lot packed into just a few minutes. So how would you respond to that?
My honest response to that is that I would have distrusted you more if you hadn't have said that you had those thoughts. See,
Mm.
that's the thing for me, is that I feel like there's not anything that I'm seeing in the world that's not in my mind. That was one of the basic premises that the Course in Miracles taught me, is that everything that I'm looking at represents some thought that's in my own mind, because we only see our own thoughts, right? We only see what we've learned. So if I see racism and I can relate to what that is, even if I was to tell myself I didn't have it, if I could define it, then there is some part of my mind that knows exactly what that is. And
Right.
so, and so I feel like I definitely have racist thoughts, but the key is, do I want to keep them? And if I'm willing to look at it differently. So
Mm-hmm.
then if you tell me you have those thoughts, but you don't want to have those thoughts, so I have those thoughts and I don't want to have those thoughts, then we can join on the idea of going beyond it. And then we can be forgiving of each other as those thoughts come up and we become aware that we have them. The biggest
Right.
problem that I've had in the past is that sometimes when I'm talking to somebody, and I call a being in a white body, because I call myself a being in what they call a body of color, because to me the most ignorant level of consciousness that you can be on is a level of consciousness where you don't like somebody because of the color of their skin. It's
Mm-hmm.
like to me, anybody that's really that way for real, I see that as a person that has a deep call for love, but also a person that's beyond reason. And the reason why I say that's beyond reason is because reason would tell you not to dislike somebody because of the color of their skin and you don't even know them. So
Right.
so so I'm so a diehard racist is not even someone that I'm going to try to change their mind anyway,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest about it. But the fact that you could say you had that feeling or you had that realization, but that's not the way that you would like to be, then to me it makes me feel like you're a person that we can get past those blocks together, because I have the same blocks, because I grew up in the segregated South where there wasn't desegregation until the Civil Rights Bill of 1964. So I grew up in a segregated experience at a level that most people don't even know about nowadays. So
Right.
I was literally taught that all of the oppression and everything that was happening negative to me and the lack of opportunities and the lack of freedom was because of white people. So I was literally being told that white people were my enemy and that they were keeping me down, right, and keeping me a victim in my experience. So I was really being programmed to look at things in terms of color, as much as a lot of white people in the South were taught to
Mm-hmm.
look at things in terms of color. So in actuality, I was just as racist as the other person. Just because I could try to make myself feel more justified didn't make me any less racist in my thinking.
Okay.
You follow
But
what I'm saying?
didn't the white man put you in that segregated situation?
The white man who was afraid and ignorant put me in that situation at the
Okay.
level of the body. Okay,
Right.
because
Okay.
right, because from a metaphysical higher consciousness perspective, which is not being taken into consideration, I create my own experience in the way that I see my experience. So regardless of what situation I was born in,
Uh-huh.
my experience of it was going to be determined by the way I see things, right? So
Okay.
even as a kid, there was a part of me that still believed it was dumb to not deal with people as individuals, and how they were dealing with me individually, let that determine how I felt about them. So
Okay.
I already had enough sanity, even as a child, to know that color alone should not determine how I feel about you. Now, if you the Ku Klux Klan coming up my house getting ready to burn my house down, and I feel hate and anger towards you for doing that, then that's still me dealing with your behavior as an individual. That
Right.
wasn't because you were white. That's because of what you were taught and the way you were
Right.
looking at things. So I could separate the person's color
Mm.
from their thinking. Does
Wow.
that does that
Yeah,
make sense?
absolutely.
And right, and that's what I'm doing even till today, as much as I possibly can, is to always keep in mind that racism is just another form of fear, and fear is coming from us not communicating with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a very diverse number of friends, and the more we got to know each other, just like you and I, we've gotten to the point that we know each other and we feel comfortable to each other, that I'm communicating with a white woman. I'm communicating with my friend Larendee, who
Right.
happens to be a white woman.
Right.
But that's happening because of my education, but also because of us in the way that we relate to each other. So
Uh-huh.
I don't feel like any of the racial issues are going to be handled and healed until first we acknowledge it's there. But we got to acknowledge it's there on both sides.
Right.
To me, it's got to be looked at. We both are suffering from the same misperception that needs to be healed, and that that there are black people who are just as afraid of white people as white people who are afraid of black people, because it's just fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to be an example of what love can do, what going
Right.
beyond that can do. And
Mm.
that's how I'm dealing with all of this that's going on,
Mm-hmm.
is that I realize that there are some people who especially need to have some form of fairness and social and reform and laws passed that need to happen, so that the things like what happened with George Floyd doesn't happen again at the level of the world. But I also know you can pass a million laws, and if people haven't changed their hearts, ultimately nothing's going to really change. And so I think that at the level of the world, and I keep saying it that way, it is that there are probably more animosity toward black people from police now than ever before.
Uh-huh.
To be quite honest,
Uh-huh.
I don't at least bit feel safer as a black man now than I did before.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because when people feel attacked, they defend by attacking. So if the police are feeling very, very much attacked more than ever before, that's not going to make them want to be kinder to black people.
Right.
They may obey the law,
Right.
but that's not the same as my heart change. So I'm interested in both that
Mhm.
I want whatever it takes to make the police and us not feel like we're enemies to each other, as much as I want the laws to be passed that ensures more safety for someone.
Right.
Because like I tell my white friends, you know, you get stopped at a traffic stop, you're not in your mind running down, let me make sure my hands are on the steering wheel, let me make sure I don't say anything, this could be, you know, I don't know what's going to happen to me now.
Mhm.
That's what goes through your mind when you're in a black body.
Right.
And so now I want to be on a level of consciousness and a level of love and a level of awareness that I wouldn't draw and create a very dangerous interaction. And so
Mhm.
that's why a lot of people, when you mix the spiritual with the physical, it can be a challenge to people, because on the one hand, it looks like you're a victim. Then on the other hand, you're not, because
Right.
you still, it's still up to you how you're going to see it.
Mhm.
See, that's what we can't get away from. No matter what's happening, it's still up to each and every one of us how we're going to see what's happening, and are we going to see what's happening in a way that keeps making us feel more separate from each other, or are we going to see what's happening in a way that makes us join with each other, but not through more attack.
Right. Well, and
That's what I'm saying.
right. And I really connect with what you just said, is that how am I going to see this in a way that moves me towards connection?
Yeah, yeah,
Right. Not that I'm
yeah.
just, not just how can I see it differently, how can I see it in a way that moves me toward connection? So one of the lessons in the course is I loose the world from all I thought it
Oh,
was.
it was right.
And I've been connecting to that. And I was asking myself the question today, well, how do I do that? And one of the things you shared was, I want to know what love can do.
Right.
That is so powerful, Earl.
But
Like
that's
that
what you
just
don't
makes
hear
me,
though,
I
right?
know.
You watch all the news, you watch all the protests. It's just like, but you don't hear, when I was growing up back in the olden days of the 60s, the leaders actually talked about, whether they meant it or not, they talked about love. They talked about brotherhood. They talked about how much we're in this together and how it's not fair for certain things and they need to be changed. At least they talked some level of unity. Now it's, that's, love is not seen as part of the equation, sort of like even in talking about the virus aspect,
Hmm.
you don't hear doctors talking about the natural immune system of the body, and how you can change your diet and what you could eat that could actually help you also not catch anything, you know. And that's what
Right.
I'm saying, we're not focusing on this, the what the real solution would be, which is love, and knowing that you have the capacity within your own body to also protect yourself more through
Hmm.
just dietary things that could make a difference.
Right. And when we talk about love, what we're talking about is the one love, the eternal God authority love, right? We're not talking, we're that kind of love bring helps us feel good, but we're talking about what can love do? What can God do in and through each of us?
Right. What can, when I talk about love, I'm talking about how can a genuine desire to recognize that we are one, that we
Mm.
are joined, that we are connected, that
Mhm.
your good is my good, your happiness is my happiness, that we can do
Mhm.
more caring and nurturing caring for and nurturing with each other than we can any other way. You know,
Right.
a love that is inclusive, because to me what we call love is just specialness. It's like,
Right.
to me, when the average person say they love you, they just mean I'm going to treat you more special than I do anyone else, where the
Mhm.
very nature of love, and we count on God loving, our creator loving all of us equally, but
Mhm.
we don't, but we won't turn around and go, that's the way we should be loving also. We say God is loving all of us equally, then, but I'm only going to care about what happens to you, and I'm only going to care about what happens to my children, and I'm only, you know what I'm saying, and
Right.
which is really saying that what you have towards your children or your mate is specialness. They're just
Mhm.
more special to you. That's not love. And I think
Right.
the way we've got specialness confused with love is the root of all our separation, racism, and fears,
Mhm.
you know.
I love that. This is a this is a question we're going to continue to ask ourselves.
Hmm.
What can love do?
What can
What
love
can
do?
right.
Yeah.
So that really lands with me so deeply. What can love do? And it's
everything.
right. And it's an action. It's what can love do?
Do right.
Right.
It's not just talking it, you know. It's
Mm-hmm.
really, it's like a teacher is a demonstrator. That's,
Mm-hmm.
I always remember that whenever I think about I'm a teacher. What does that mean? It means I want to demonstrate. I don't want to be another, I've always never wanted to be another one of those teachers who can talk a good, talk it, but they can't actually let it be it. They can't be the physical embodiment of
Mm-hmm.
it. And now I wanted to be as best I can the physical embodiment of what I'm teaching. So
Mm-hmm.
that means that I had to be more honest about my own ego and my own flaws and the things that I'm not seeing correctly. But many teachers believe that, you know, being a teacher means you don't reveal any weaknesses, that you won't say what you did earlier when you
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, I was drifting off and wasn't here present all the time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I can trust, because now I know we are both serious about trying to get rid of our blocks. So
Right.
much so that you weren't willing to hide it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to raise my hand and commit to with you and to join with you to to be that teacher of God and to continue to ask that question, what can love do? So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, when I hear the term Black Lives Matter, the one word that I'd like to add to that I think helps is to say Black Lives Matter too.
Right.
Because that's what it's not saying that all lives doesn't matter, but it's saying, yeah, but my life matters too.
Right. But what I've
Right.
heard some of my Black friends say, Earl, is that you shouldn't have to add that because obviously white people know their lives matter. Black lives haven't mattered. So what would you say to that?
Well, that what I'm saying is, when that's why I said Black Lives Matter too. If I'm sitting at a table and everybody's supposed to be eating dinner and I don't have a plate in front of me and I say I'm hungry and somebody says back to me, well, all people get hungry. Well, that might be well and good, but I don't have the plate in front of me. The rest of them got
Right.
the plate in front of you. So
Right.
that's so to me, that's the part of that statement that all lives matters that's disingenuous to me.
Mm,
It's like, yeah, but I don't have a plate at the table.
right.
So I'm just saying, please give me, I want a plate at the table also. When I
Right.
say, you know, it matters that I eat
Hmm.
too.
Right.
And that's why I
Right.
said that about the two. It's like, yeah, all lives matter, but, and I
And
don't have a plate in front of me right now.
uh-huh.
And the rest of you got plates. And so all of us do get hungry, but you have food. And
Right.
I'm just saying, I want a plate too.
Hmm.
It's, you know, to me, that's the analogy that kind of, to me, teaches the difference between that statement, all lives matter, and what people mean when they say Black Lives Matter.
Uh-huh. Well, thank you. I want all lives to matter too. I want Black lives to matter too because none of us can return to our kingdom state. None of us can go home without the other. So we're all needed.
Right, and bottom line is, unless we get to the part of us that's beyond social, cultural, racial differences to the one self that we all share, nothing's going to change.
Right.
And you can't, to me, you can't solve a problem on the same level that it was created on.
Right.
And if it was created on the level that Black people and white people and all of us are separate from each other, and we're trying to make it be all of us separate people trying to figure out a way to get along, then that's not any different than what's been happening all down through history that hasn't ever worked.
Right.
Right? It's got to be, we got to tap into, where are we the same?
Mm,
Where are we? Where are you and I the same? We both want
mm,
to be happy, right? We both want
hmm.
love. We both want safety. We both want shelter. We both want kindness. We both,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Those are that's what's going to make us uh, uh, have peace with each other. You know,
Right.
and then what is the advantage of me appearing to be different from you and you being different from me? How can we use our differences to still move us toward unity, oneness, and love too?
Right. To
Right?
have we can take our different perspectives
Yes.
to help one another see where there might be a different way to look at things.
That's what I'm talking about. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. If our goal is the same, we are the same. Now, the way we go about it, that's the beauty of it, is that
Right.
you can bring gifts that I can't bring, and vice versa,
Mm-hmm.
toward the same goal. So the main
Mm-hmm.
thing to get past the racism, to me, is for us to have a common purpose that we all in agreement on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Mm.
As always, such a rich conversation. And I just want to give pause one more time that what can love do?
Right,
That that's what
right.
I want to stay. I just want to stay in the question about that.
Yeah,
What
what
can
can
love
love do? What can love? How can it get better than this? What can love do? And I like to share right at the end is, this is just my perception.
do?
I'm
Mhm.
not saying it's the only way to look at it. It's
Right.
the way that you asked me how I look at it. And that's the thing too, is that, we need to respect that everybody's not going to look at the world through your lens. And it's
Mm.
ridiculous to think everybody's going to look at the world the way you look at it. And
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that is what blocks communication too, is that
Mm-hmm.
when we're doing it in terms of you're right and I'm wrong, rather than this is a perspective and this is another perspective.
Mm-hmm. How can I change my perception if I'm
That's
not
right.
willing to have open dialogue and hug that question
Right.
and be able to have to trust myself to have conversations with people who think very differently than I do, so I can have a different perception. And that's also us not willing to be able to do that comes from fear, doesn't it?
That's right.
That and you have a saying that you taught me that I have been really leaning into, and it is, I hope I'm wrong about this.
That's right.
I
If I,
love
if right, right, right. If I don't want to be right that all policemen are dangerous to black people.
that. Right.
I don't want that to be right. I don't want anything that would make me feel separate and afraid. I don't want that to be the correct perception.
Right.
Right. I hope I'm wrong, and I want another way. Give me another way of looking at it.
Uh-huh.
That's exactly the way that I feel about any so-called negative feeling that I have. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be right about something that's making me feel afraid. And
Mm-hmm.
even if people go, well, you should be right about that. No, no, no. The mere fact that there's no love, I'm not going to ever agree that any perception that's different from love is right. That's
Right.
me personally.
Right.
No way.
I agree with you on that, Earl. Why would I want to hold on to anything that's causing me a lack of peace?
That's right.
No.
Right. Yeah, that's what you're saying. Do you want to be, like, the question is what? Do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy?
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Well, thanks, Earl.
Okay.
Much love. Much
Much
love.
much love to you too.